G'day, g'day. I'm Alan Gamble. Welcome to another episode of Aussie Box Office Charts. This time for weekend 11 of 2025. So let's get into it. Starting with Mikey 17 holding top spot with $2.2 million, a 27% hold in week 2. As I expected, it was a softer hold thanks to Brisbane being able to attend the cinemas this weekend. Black Bag premieres in second position with $911,000, which, great movie. I also watched it and we'll check how that holds up in line with Steven Soderbergh's other movies a little bit later in this video. In third spot, Bridget Jones, Mad About the Boy, continues to effectively dominate Captain America with another $773,000, a 22% hold for a current total of $14.8 million. Captain America in at number 4 with another $561,000, a 26% hold after 5 weeks of release for a current total of $12.9 million. And Nizar 2 in at 5th position with another $175,000 after 5 weeks for a current total of $7.1 million. On the Captain America front, it does look like it will pass Black Widow, but it looking like it's slowing down enough that it might not surpass the Eternals range. So, not good news for Captain America there. Continuing on to 6 through 10, we have The Monkey moving up to 6th spot from being in, I think, 9th spot last week, with another $157,000 after 4 weeks of release, a 24% hold for a current total of $1.7 million. One of Them Days moves up the chart as well, with another $154,000 after 2 weeks of release, a 26% hold for a current total of $467,000. Anora drops down a few spots with $146,000 in 8th position after 12 weeks of release, a 43% drop on last week with a current total of $2.7 million. David Wenham in Spit is in 9th position with another $140,000 after 2 weeks of release, a 28% drop for a current total of $655,000. And A Complete Unknown spends what will probably be its last week in the top 10 with another $128,000 after 8 weeks of release for a current total of $8.1 million. And quickly just looking at what's dropped out of the top 10 this week, Conclave is finally out of the top 10 after 10 weeks of release with a really impressive run. Taking a look at Steven Soderbergh opening weekends. Now, when we go back this far in history, some of the numbers get a little bit foggy, where their accuracy might not be 100%, but anything since about 2012 onwards, 2011, 2012 onwards, seems to be more reliable. So there are numbers out there, but it's hard to convert whether they were converted for USD and AUD, when they were converted, what exchange rate were they converted. So mileage may vary, but let's take a look. Traffic in 2000 for Steven Soderbergh opened at $2.1 million. Ocean's 11, which was a smash hit, opened to $7.9 million. Ocean's 12 in 2004 opened to $4.5 million, and Ocean's 13 in 2007 opened to $3.9 million. There's a big drop with 2011's Contagion opening to $1.5 million, and Magic Mike opened to $3.7 million in 2012. Logan Lucky in 2017, one of my favourite Steven Soderbergh movies, opened to $914,000. A remarkably close number to Black Bag. Unsane in 2018 opened in only like 30 odd cinemas to $80,000, so it was not a wide release where all the rest were at some scale a wide release. Kimmy in 2022, $0 because it didn't get a theatrical release in Australia or anywhere as far as I'm aware. Magic Mike's Last Dance in 2023 opened to $1.6 million. Presents earlier in 2025 opened to $294,000, and Black Bag opened to $911,000. So there's a bit of a hit and miss. Personally, some of my favourite Steven Soderbergh movies are the low grosses in this. Contagion is a brilliant movie in my opinion. Magic Mike, yes, it made a lot more money, but it is surprisingly good. And Logan Lucky, one of my favourites. The Oceans trilogy is, very solid, very reliable, had big names, and it was early 2000s where star power was a lot more prevalent than it is today. But there we go. It's on track with Logan Lucky, so I hope people find Black Bag as it moves forward through time and people discover it, because it's clear no one's going to see it at the cinema, and I think they'll regret it if they don't. Just like with Logan Lucky, where people see it and they go, oh man, this was so good, why didn't I see it in cinemas? Because you don't go and see original movies. I do, and I loved it. Go and see it if you've got a chance. Looking at the 2025 top 10 for the Australian box office, a few changes this week. Paddington in Peru still holds top spot at $17.6 million. And Bridget Jones, Mad About the Boy, still holds second at $14.8 million. Captain America still holding third spot at $12.9 million. And then we have a shuffle around, with Conclave moving up to fourth spot with $8.1 million. A Complete Unknown at number 5, moving up again with $8.15 million. Those two movies are so close in box office, but with Conclave dropping out of the top 10 this week, and Complete Unknown just about to drop out as well, it'll be interesting to see where those two land at the end of the day. Both of those pushed Nosferatu down to 6th position with just over $8 million. Nizar 2 holds 7th spot with $7.1 million, and We Live in Time continues to hold 8th spot with $6.7 million. A new entry with Mikey 17 entering the chart at position number 9 with $3.6 million, bumping Baby Girl down a spot with $3.4 million. And there goes Den of Thieves 2 Pantera has been knocked out of the top 10 for 2025. And time to take a quick look at what's coming up this week. 20th of March, in wide release, we have Snow White, the latest Disney live-action remake of a classic animated tale from director Mark Webb, the director of The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 and 500 Days of Summer. We have Flow, the Academy Award-winning animated movie from Latvia, finally getting a theatrical release in Australia. Highly recommend that movie, thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was my pick for Best Animated Movie of the Year. And Locked, a horror thriller from David Yaroski, director of Brightburn and The Night Books, and The Hive, starring Bill Skarsgård and Anthony Hopkins. In limited release for March 20th, so these are being released, but you might have to have a hunt around your local, more independent cinema chains to track down these movies. We have The Alto Knights, a new crime gangster movie starring Robert De Niro and directed by Barry Levinson, director of Rain Man, Sleepers, and Good Morning Vietnam, written by Nicholas Pileggi, writer of a few crime things you might know, like Goodfellas, Casino, and City Hall. So there could be some weight behind this one. We have The Return, a historical drama looking at Odysseus returning to his kingdom after being away for 20 years, starring Ralph Fiennes. And lastly, The Rule of Jenny Penn, a new horror movie from writer-director James Ashcroft, starring Jeffrey Rush and John Lithgow, and featuring a creepy puppet. So if creepy puppet vibes are your jam, this one might be for you. Moving across to streaming. March 19th sees the release of Good American Family on Hulu/Disney Plus in Australia, a new miniseries about a couple that adopts a child who they believe to be a girl with dwarfism, but gradually start to believe that she may not be who she said she was. From creator Katie Robbins, creator of Sunny, and starring Ellen Pompeo, Mark Duplass, and Imogen Faith Reed. On March 20th, again on Disney Plus, we have the new movie of Odessa from writer-director Jeremy Jasper, a music, drama, sci-fi movie where a farm girl is on a quest to recover a family heirloom, starring Sadie Sink. And lastly, over on Netflix, a new series of The Residents, a murder mystery set in the White House where an eccentric detective who must solve the crime where anyone's a suspect, from creator Paul William Davis, starring Yuzo Uduba, Randall Park, and Giancarlo Esposito. What I watched for this week's Cinechum's Movie Challenge with the theme of International Women's Day, which included things written by women, directed by women, or female-led, with no male co-leads. A few other categories, but those were the ones that I focused on. For me, this week was a PB with a total of 12 movies watched, thanks to an extra day of leave and some medical issues that kept me up for a few nights. And when you're staying up all night, watching movies is a good time sink. First up was Greta Gerwig's Little Women from 2019, the most recent movie iteration of the classic novel from Louisa May Alcott, and starring a stacked cast: Saoirse Ronan, Emma Watson, Florence Pugh, and Eliza Scanlon. It was a really strong movie. Granted, I had never seen any of the other iterations, but I feel a certain meta-narrative that Gerwig made was a really fresh change and felt 100% in line with the character and the narrative that was established. Really good movie. Next up was a small-budget indie movie from 2016 of First Girl I Loved, from Kareem Sanger, that was co-female-led by Dylan Galua and Brianna Hildebrand. A small-scale coming-of-age movie with a lot of love and muddled sexuality as the characters try and learn who they are while other pressures from parents and teachers come down on them. Also, all the actors playing all the different teachers in this movie were great, so a shout out to all of them that they just absolutely nailed the parts. Moving on was Bound from 1996 from writers and directors Lana and Lily Wachowski and co-led by Gina Gershon and Jennifer Tilly. Not too much to say with this one apart from this movie rocks, and if you have not seen it, you really should. Next was Saving Face from 2004, written and directed by Alice Wu, who I just recently watched her more recent movie The Half of It a couple of weeks ago for the Accessories Challenge. And it was led by Joan Chen. This was a really good romantic comedy with both more gay and Asian flair than typically. Really funny, but also really well-written characters, which is something I've come to expect from Alice Wu, as the characters always really feel really authentic. And it feels pretty obvious that she's writing from a lot of her own personal experience injected into her movies. Movie number 5 was one that was on my watch list for a long time. Portrait of a Lady on Fire from 2019, written and directed by Celine Sciamma and co-led by Noémie Merlan and Adèle Haenel. A historical romance drama set in the 18th century and a brilliant film, worthy of the spot it had on my best movies of all time watch list. Slow burn, but I was very much on the side of the characters the entire time in wanting just one more day. So I was counting the minutes as much as the characters were, and that was quite good. 6 was Carol from 2015, directed by Todd Haynes, but based on the novel by Patricia Highsmith, and co-led by Kate Blanchett and Rooney Mara, about a 1950s store clerk sparking up a wild romance with a rich older woman. This one had the more interesting side story of an ending marriage and a custody battle at play as well. Moving on to number 7 with Blue is the Warmest Colour from 2013, and for challenge eligibility it's written by Galia Lacroix and the graphic novel by June Marot, who is non-binary, so I'm not sure how that plays into the challenge, but I'm putting it here as part of the package anyway. Female co-led by Lee Seydoux, and an incredible performance by Adele Exarchopoulos. While there was some troubles with the behind the scenes of this movie that have come out long after the fact, it can't take away from those incredible lead performances. Changing pace from the emotionally heavy stuff with some crazy action from Indonesia, with The Shadow Strays from 2024, which was led by Aurora Ribeiro. It was a solid action flick, but I think it was a little bit too long and could have been trimmed down and tightened up a little bit. But it was still a solid action movie, and it was a refreshing change of pace after all the emotionally heavy movies that I'd been watching until that point. Keeping it lighter, next was Shiva Baby from 2021, a comedy drama written and directed by Emma Siegman, starring as lead Rachel Seno, with Molly Gordon alongside. Funny, awkward, and cringe-worthy, but still great with a lot of heart. A coming-of-age movie at the more older end of the coming-of-age gap, but it was still a really funny, awkward movie to watch. The next one really surprised me with the amount of heart that it had. In You Can Live Forever from 2023, co-written and co-directed by Sarah Watts and Mark Slutsky, with some great lead performances from the co-leads of Anwen O'Driscoll and June Laporte. Taking the coming of age and discovering sexuality baseline and wrapping it in the package of the Jehovah's Witness faith, and not just external pressures of faith that were around and in relation to being gay was a sin, etc. But it was also one of the girl's internal own conflict with her face versus what her heart wanted. I love this little Canadian movie and highly recommend it if you have not seen it. The penultimate movie for this challenge was Concussion from 2013, written and directed by Stacey Passon and led by Robin Weigart. About a lonely housewife that starts working as an escort to feel things that she's missing from her marriage. And it was really good. I had the benefit and the luck of no movie that I watched this week's challenge was considered bad by me. There was a couple that had some issues. I preferred some to others, but none were necessarily ones where I felt like I had wasted my time. Lastly was Water Lilies from 2007, written and directed by Celine Sciamma. Again, after I loved Portrait of a Woman on Fire so much, I went back through her catalogue and put on her first movie, this one being led by three women, Pauline Arquette, Louise Blachier, and Adèle Haenel. A really lovely movie that seemed to have more of a look at kids trying to grow up too fast, to be too cool too early, have sex, drink, party, in ways that make them lose that childhood innocence earlier than they should. But that's all I watched for this week's challenge, and next we'll take a look at what's upcoming next. And now taking a look at this week's Cinechums movie challenge. For week 12 we have maths, so basic maths like the sum of all fears or Godzilla -1. Might watch my black and white one. +1, Sin City for advanced maths or the life of Pi, X-Men with the X constant, maths either part of the plot like Real Genius or The Imitation Game, characters involved in maths, so crypto, scams and butterfly effect and all sorts of fun things like that, and more math concepts like fractals, crypts, codes. There's a few good examples like 21 and Beautiful Mind, Contact obviously, Equilibrium and Equals, and Marguerite's Theorem, which I have already watched. I got an early start on this week's challenge. Taking a look at my shortlist for this week's challenge, we have Marguerite's Theorem, which I've already watched. Shithouse, 0 fucks given, as 0 is a mathematical concept. Things with the word straight or 5 to 7. The 1 is a mathematical concept as well as a number. Extract, like a mathematical extract. We've got Sin City, the sequel. And then there's a few other things that are like open range or circle or triangle that are mathematical shapes. So that's what I'm looking at. That is it for me this week. Tune in next week where we'll be looking at more charts and the release of things like Flow and the Alto Nights and Snow White, the big Disney one. We'll be interested to see how that compares with other Disney remakes. We'll be looking at that. But that's it for me. I might try and catch Flow on the weekend, which I highly encourage everyone to do if you get a chance this weekend. I may also look at the Alto Nights, depending on how it sounds. But that's it for me. Have a good one. I will catch you again next week. Bye.